The first thing to do is to turn off the power to the air conditioners and then turn off the power to the air handlers. Since we're going to be connecting the control valve to the control wire coming from the air handler, we don't want to risk the chance of blowing a fuse up in the air handler. Now we're going to go ahead and pull the service bus bar just to guarantee that we don't have any 220 still coming out here to the air conditioner. And there's the T handle, hard to see. We'll pull it out. And there it is with just a T handle. Set that up on top. Flip it back up. Now we're ready to unpack the evac kit, and it comes with 4 frames and legs. And then there's the evac pads that are critical. And then there's the control valve that is pre-wired. And there's the box that has the nozzle extensions. It's got the mounting straps, some other mounting clips, and the mister line. And if you're buying 2 systems at the same time, it comes with a dual valve to make it easier to control the water. The mounting frames have a front and a back. The front is where the set screw is, and we'll use that when we're strapping the frames to the condenser unit. And here we've got the legs installed with the hooks facing out forward. And then we just take the top tube and twist it around so the hooks are facing out forward. Now we have hooks facing forward, mounting screw facing forward, and we're ready to go. And now we're going to do what some people say is the hardest part, but it's really incredibly easy. We're going to connect the control valve to the control line going into the back of the air conditioning unit, of the compressor unit. And going into the air conditioner, there's a big wire that carries the power, and then there's a little wire that carries the thermostatic control. And what we're going to do is connect into the thermostatic control wire. I'm using a 6-in-1 screwdriver where I took the tip out of it to get it to be a nut driver. And you just loosen, you take out the bottom 2 screws, and then you just loosen the top screws. When the access cover comes off, you're going to see something that looks something like that. And you have the main power going to the condenser, and then you have small wires that are going over to the control unit. What we're going to do is to bring our new wire into the same access hole so that we can connect the 2. Once you have the new wires in, you'll notice that we're only using the red and the white. The extra wires were left long so that you can just bend them over and hold the wire in. So just push it down, bend it over tight, it'll hold the wire in. And then since we're still going to be concerned about blowing fuses up in the exchanger up in the attic, we'll just remove 1 wire nut at a time. So you remove 1 wire nut, connect it to 1 wire, and then remove the other wire nut and connect it to the other wire. If you do them one at a time, there's no probability of blowing the fuse. Now it doesn't matter which of the new wires goes where, and so once you have them wired nutted in, just pull on the wire nut, make sure it's a tight, good connection. Move the wires back out of the way, and we're ready to put the cover plate back on. And it goes on the exact way it came off. Slides up underneath, screws in. Now take a deep breath because the hard part's done. The next thing you do is to take the 4 frames that you assembled and just lean them loosely around the outside of the condenser unit. And put all 4 frames around. And then what you're going to do is to just snug the frames in with the attaching belt. And then you just take this attaching strap and you feed it around the mounting frames, and you make sure that the attaching strap just sort of sits on top of that screw so it doesn't slide down while you're putting it together. Just snug up the attaching strap for now and make sure that the bottom of the legs are all in relatively tight. You're ready to do the next step, which would be installing the misters. Now there's some assembly required. So the first thing you have to do is untangle or uncurl the misting line. Now back in the parts kit, in the bag, the first thing you're going to install is the washer that goes into the hose end of the mist line. And then you're going to start installing the mister extensions. And you'll start at the other end, the pointy end, and just screw them in the end. There's 5 mister nozzles, and then there's 1 low pressure relief valve nozzle. And so if you start at the pointy end and install the 5 mister nozzles and the 1 pressure relief nozzle, you'll be ready to go. That pressure relief nozzle will help prevent clogging in the nozzles. And we're trying really hard to minimize the maintenance. The good thing is that all of these parts are available at most Home Depots, so if you do run into a problem with any of them, you can just run down to your local Home Depot and get replacement parts and keep your system working for years. Here we have all the Mister extension nozzles installed and the low pressure relief valve installed, and so Mister line is ready to go to the next step. So what we'll do first though is to take the pads, carry them over and install them. Most evac systems come with a long pad and a short pad, because most condensers have a long side and a short side. And so the short pad will install on the side where it is short. This is pretty easy. You slide the pad into the hooks at the bottom and then just clamp the hooks that are at the top. And sometimes you need to loosen those hooks to make it slide in better, because what you want it to do is to slide in pretty easy without too much restriction. And then it slides in on the top, and you just turn the hooks down. Now all the pads are on, and it's time to make sure that they're adjusted right. What you want to do is to minimize the amount of overspray that can go into the unit, so the corners need to be pretty tight. Now sometimes that means that there's an overlap of one panel across the other, and that's just what happens when you're dealing with production sizes. But as long as the corners are all tight so that you don't get any mist coming back through the corners, then you're good to put on a mist line. And laying out the mist line, it doesn't really matter where you start or stop, because there's enough hose end so you can do whatever you need. And all you do is to loosen the top, pull the pad out, set the mist line in between the pad and the unit, put it back together again, and tighten the clamps. There are times when putting a mister out away from the frame is a good idea. Depends upon the wind, depends upon the size of the pads, lots of variables. And so that's why we included these clips that snap around the line, and then you can clip the line wherever you need it to be. With 5 nozzles and 4 sides, it means that the dominant side, now that's always one of the big pads, it's normally where the wind is going to be blowing the mist back into the pad, but the dominant side gets to have 2 misters. And what you do with the extra hose in between is just let it hang down in between. Now the sides are up, the frames are up, the pads are in, the misters are all extended. Now's the time that you can go through and you can push down on all the connections to just tighten them up, and you can squeeze together on the tops to tighten them up, because this twist is one of the adjustments that you can use to tighten the frames in. And then once you have everything tight, it's time to align the nozzles. And the easiest way to align the nozzles is to bend it over the top, and then use this very fancy nozzle extension or nozzle mounting. It just slides underneath the frame. The nozzle just points down into it, and it'll hold the end of the nozzle out away from the pad at about the right angle so that you can get the right mist coming out of the end of it. Very simple solution to increase the effectiveness. And now the final assembly. You screw the calcium filter into your garden hose, and I'm showing you this on top of the condenser because it's easier to see. And then you screw the calcium filter into the end of the control valve, and then you screw the nozzle line to the other end of the control valve. Tighten all the connections, and then you set this on the ground, and you're ready to go. Put the service breaker back in. Turn the breakers back on. And you're ready to turn on your AC. Now with your air conditioner on, you can look at the mist and see the spray pattern it's doing, spraying out from the sides. Hard to see on the camera. And the wind determines which way it's going, but you can check to see how well the pads are wetting out. You can see how well the spray pattern is working. And you're good to go.